Countdown to Halloween 2023, featuring eerie and uncanny tales of haunts, ghosts, and suspense. October is finally here. Join us all month for special Halloween presentations on Storylink Radio's YouTube channel as we count down to Halloween 2023. Keep a close eye on YouTube alerts or you'll miss one. Celebrate October with us right here and now. Tonight's presentation from Storylink Radio. The Snow Cave. Belinda's dad pulled a car into the parking space in front of the general store. Okay, honey, I'm going to get some supplies and order the wood we need for the whole 2 weeks we'll be in the cabin. They're predicting snow. We'll appreciate a nice warm fire. Hey, I'm going camping for 2 weeks. I don't know if I want to read this story or not. Sounds great, Dad, she agreed. Can I take a walk with Shiloh? Yeah, sure, hon, but don't go far. And zip up your jacket, he called after her. It's getting pretty cold out here. Belinda clipped Shiloh's leash to his collar and opened the car door. The excited husky bounded out and stood behind the truck, his tail wagging. Together, Belinda and Shiloh strolled along the sidewalk, looking into shop windows. When they returned, 2 gray-haired men were sitting on wooden stools outside the general store. There's a pretty fine animal there, one of the men said. Shiloh took a liking to the man right away and waited to be petted. Are you the young lady whose folks rented the Rogers cabin, huh? Yes, sir. If there's enough snow, my dad's going to teach me to ski. If there's too much, the second man said seriously, you get more than you bargained for around here. I beg your pardon? Linda tilted her head in question. I don't mind old Frank. The first man, whose name was Willis, advised. He's just afraid of the snowman. Belinda laughed. Afraid of a snowman? The smile disappeared from Willis's face. We're not talking about a ball of snow with a carrot nose and a top hat. Have you ever heard of the Yeti? Belinda nodded. Yeah, they're huge ape-like creatures in the mountains in Asia, but it's only a legend. Willis leaned back in his chair. According to local Indian legend around here, something like the Yeti once lived in these mountains. Maybe it still does. The man's eyes twinkled. There's a chain of underground caves around here with several different openings to the surface. Nobody knows just how far they go back or what might be living in them. Huh? Belinda was fascinated. If there are snow creatures here, why hasn't anyone seen them? Frank took a long drag on his pipe and let the smoke slowly curl from his lips. Maybe some people did, huh? Back in 39, when we were kids, we used to play up on that ridge where the Rogers cabin stands now. It was a good hill for sledding, you know. One weekend there was a real heavy snowfall. All we wanted was to have fun. His voice faltered as his face clouded over, as if the memory of that weekend was painful. Yeah, but one of our group, said Willis, picking up the story, was a boy named Wally. Somehow Wally got lost, just disappeared. Some folks figured they'd find a body in spring, but they never did. All we ever found was one of his red mittens and his broken sled with some deep scratches in it, like claw marks. Willis glanced at Frank. There are a few who think a Yeti got him. According to legend, they come to the surface to hunt when there's a lot of snow. And isn't it strange, Frank added, that every time we have a major snowfall, some hiker or skier suddenly disappears. No body, no nothing. Has anyone disappeared lately? Belinda asked. No, but we haven't had much snow for 8 years. The door to the general store swung open and Belinda's dad stepped out with two large grocery bags. He placed them in the trunk of the car and joined Belinda and the men. Hey, might one of you fellas be Willis? He asked. Yeah, that's me. I'm Joe McGowan, Belinda's dad said, smiling. They told me to check inside check with you about getting wood for delivery to the cabin. Yeah, sure, no problem, Willis answered. Frank and I'll get it loaded on a truck and bring it up here in a little while, okay? Yeah, it'd be great, Mr. McGowan said, and then turned to Belinda. Come on, honey, we're all set. If we don't get back to the cabin soon, your mom will get worried. As they got into the van, it began to snow. Belinda told her dad about the legend. He laughed. Well, I can't say that I believe in snow monsters, hon, but there's a good point to the story. These woods can be dangerous and people can easily get lost. Belinda buried her fingers in Shiloh's thick coat. Well, I don't have to worry as long as Shiloh's with me. Isn't that right, boy? Yeah. Shiloh answered by licking her ear. It wasn't a long drive, but by the time they got to this cabin, the snow was starting to pile up. Within an hour, Willis arrived with the firewood, and Belinda and her dad helped him to unload it. Belinda's mom made them all a hot cup of abuelita's cocoa, which they drank in the living room in front of a warm fire. After a while, Willis set down his cup. Yeah, don't mean to rush off, he said as he pulled on his jacket. But it looks like the weather's getting worse. Thank God we just get back to town. We haven't had this much snow in a long time. But hey, thank you for that abuelita, as you called it. That's some mighty good cocoa there. Belinda glanced out the window at the darkening landscape. As if he knew what she was thinking, Willis laughed. Don't be concerned, little lady. The storm will blow over by tomorrow. He trudged out into the snow and then stopped and called back over his shoulder. Hey, if you folks need anything, just call down to the general store and ask for me, right? Turned out Willis was wrong. It snowed the whole night, and through the next day and night, too. The report on the radio said it was the most snow that had fallen in 30 years. The following day, the clouds cleared. The air was cold and crisp. The huge snowdrifts glistened in the winter sunshine. Belinda was too excited to think about snow monsters. Her dad had rented 3 large inner tubes that were perfect for sliding downhill. Belinda dressed warmly. Her parents had taught her to respect nature and prepare for anything, so she also packed a few supplies in her fanny pack. It took some time for the family to work their way up through the soft snow to the top of the ridge behind the cabin. But it was worth it. There was a long, wide clearing on the hill with dense forest on each side. Soon Belinda and her parents were taking turns whizzing down the open patch of hillside in their rubber tubes, then scrambling back up again for another ride. Each time Belinda swooshed downward, Shiloh, who remained safe and sound and alive and well throughout this entire story, raced along behind. He barked and tumbled in the snow, seeming to really enjoy the game. Whew, Belinda's mom exclaimed as they scrunched up the hill together. I think I've had enough. Oh, Mom, just one more ride, Belinda begged. Why don't we all race to the bottom of the hill? Come on. Okay, her dad said. Last one to the bottom's a rotten egg. He took off laughing. Belinda and her mom each belly flopped under the tubes and raced after him. Belinda was a little behind when her tube hit a patch of icy snow and veered off to the right. She tried to correct the turn, but she was going too fast. The tube sped in among the trees and headed for a huge pine. Belinda tumbled off the tube and rolled into a big drift of snow. Helpless, she slid downward, picking up speed toward a wide, flat rock that stuck up out of the drift. She curled in her legs and covered her head with her arms, expecting to crash, but instead of hitting the rock, she slid through a small opening beneath it. She slid further to the darkness and felt herself tumble over a ledge and fall about 5 feet straight down. Screaming into nothingness, Belinda finally came to an abrupt stop on cold, hard ground. Then everything went black. That's it. Good night, guys. The end. Now let's finish this story. Besides, we've got one more if we have time. Then everything went black. At first, when she came to, Belinda thought she had been dreaming. But as soon as she moved, she knew it was all real. Nothing seemed to be broken, but she was sore all over. If it hadn't been for her layers of padded winter clothing, she would surely have been seriously hurt by the fall. She reached under her jacket, which relieved to find that the fanny pack was still strapped to her waist. Fumbling a little in the inky blackness, she pulled out her small flashlight, clicked it on, and surveyed her surroundings. Wow, she said aloud. What is this place? The beam of light revealed a large cave with several tunnels leading from it. She moved the light up and saw an opening. Above her, she realized she had fallen through it. Slowly, she stood up and rubbed her sore legs. The opening was just a little out of reach. She looked around to see if there was anything to stand on. The cave was completely empty. Hello? 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 She called out. Hello? I'm down here. Can anybody hear me? There was no answer. How long has she been down here? She realized that her parents must be searching for her, but they probably would not have seen her careening off into the forest. How would they find her? There must be another way out, she murmured, remembering that Willis had said what he had said about the caves and how there were several openings to the surface. She tried not to think about the other things he had told her. Taking a deep breath, Belinda chose one of the tunnels and entered it. In some places, she had to duck way down and crawl. She had the feeling that she was heading further down, but where else could she go? She had to try it. Finally, the passage opened up into another wide cavern. Belinda shone the flashlight around and noted that there were other tunnels. Then her foot kicked something. She turned the beam on it and screamed at the empty eye socket staring blindly up at her. It was a human skull. In horror, Belinda moved the flashlight beam a little further and saw the skull was attached to other bones that had once been the body of a child. And worst of all, the skeleton had a single red mitten on one hand. "Wally!" she cried, not hearing the muffled footsteps slipping up behind her in the dark. Then all at once she felt a presence. Slowly she turned and saw a horrible monster in the glare of her flashlight. It was a huge beast covered with stiff white fur, had enormous bloodshot eyes and a snarling mouth full of sharp yellow fangs. Roaring in anger, the creature slashed at Belinda with its thick, bear-like claws. She just wished she had a lightsaber. She ducked the blow and dashed for another tunnel. Her heart pounding, she sprinted along the twisting passage, and bursting into the open space, she saw the very same skeleton she had seen before. "These tunnels must be interconnected," she whispered frantically. "I'm going in circles." Although she had no idea where the beast might be, Belinda tried another entrance and stumbled along, drawing in the stale air with ragged gasps. After what seemed like ages, she found herself once again in the same horrible chamber. Without hesitating, she dashed into another tunnel. This time she seemed to be climbing, perhaps toward the surface. The thought gave her courage, and she ran faster. Then suddenly she stumbled. Grabbing an outcrop of rock, she managed to stop her fall. She showed her flashlight ahead and saw that she was actually at the rim of some sort of ledge. On one side of the tunnel dropped away into the deep, wide crevasse. As she tried to see how far along the path the crevasse ran, her flashlight dimmed and slowly faded out. Belinda's heart sank. Now she was completely enveloped in darkness. The hair stood up on the back of her neck, and she heard the echoing sound of a low snarl. Where was it coming from? How close was it? She set her jaw in determination. She was not going to just sit and wait for the snow monster to find her. Instead, she dropped to her knees and carefully felt her way along the path. "I will get out. I will," she said to herself. To keep her spirits up, she thought of Shiloh. For a moment, she smiled as she remembered his excited bark. It seemed that she could actually hear it. "Wait a minute," Belinda said aloud as she straightened up. "I do hear it." She strained her ears. "Shiloh? Shiloh?" Now she could hear voices, too. Human voices. "Belinda!" her dad called. "Dad, I'm over here." Slowly the tunnel brightened. A moment later, her father and another man turned a corner with Shiloh leading them. "Dad!" Belinda jumped to her feet and ran toward them. But with a blood-curdling snarl, the snow monster leaped from the side tunnel. Inches away from her, it raised its claws and suddenly cried out in agony. Shiloh had raced ahead and sunk his teeth into the beast's leg. The hideous monster twisted clumsily to strike at the dog, but Shiloh held on as the savage snow creature toppled and fell, howling into the crevasse. "Shiloh, let go!" Belinda screamed as she threw herself forward and grabbed Shiloh to stop him from falling with the monster. Belinda's dad reached them and scooped her up in his arms. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. We're getting you out of here." A little later, Belinda woke in her own bed. Her mother was sitting at her side, and Shiloh was stretched out on the floor, chewing on a big, meaty bone. "Mom? Mom, was it a dream?" "No, honey," her mother said, hugging her tightly. "How did you find me?" Belinda's mother smiled down at the husky at her feet. "Shiloh led us to the spot where you had disappeared. It was too small for us to get through, so we had to get help. Once we were able to widen the opening, Shiloh led the rescue party to you. Many townspeople came to help." There was a knock at the door, and Willis poked his head inside. "Yeah, came to see if you're all right." "I'm fine now," Belinda said. "Is the monster dead?" "Well, we can only hope so, Willis answered. He stood near the window watching the first flakes of a new snowstorm. Shiloh lifted his head and turned his gaze to the window, too. Then he drew back his lip slightly to show his front fangs. A low growl rumbled in his throat. "It's okay, boy. It's okay," Belinda soothed. But then, of course, Belinda didn't pick up the scent of the creature that stood at the edge of the woods, staring toward the cabin with enormous, bloodshot eyes. You've just heard tonight's story from Storylink Radio's Countdown to Halloween 2023. Remember to come back for our next tale. Many more stories of all genres available to listen to and read along with now on our website at www.storylinkradio.com. Visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/storylinkradio. And visit our podcast for easy mobile listening anywhere, anytime. Just search for Storylink Radio on your favorite podcast provider. Oh, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click that alert bell for Storylink Radio.